Alright guys, such a comic again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Shotzzy cooking up going into the Esports World Cup, and ZooMaa also giving his perspective on the current batch of pro players compared to what we used to have back in the day, calling out Slasher among others for ruining the game in recent years, getting rid of the snipers and getting us to a point where the competitive Call of Duty League is far less entertaining than it could be. Is that going to turn around in BO7? Is the current crop of pros simply not able to play as they used to? Very much on Twitter your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into today as always. We're going to start here just on that Huke discussion. We've just seen this tweet here from Hex and Huke having a bit of an interaction. There is talk about it, as Trey I think rightfully said, that there's a good argument to say that Huke has been the best player for OpTic this year, and maybe over the course of the season it wasn't even especially close. Of course you can argue it towards the end of the season. Thought this is pretty interesting that Crackops put out as well. These are KD leaders, minimum 2 events competed for each game mode across Hardpoint, Search and Destroy, etc. So just the leaders across kills per 10, damage per 10, plus minus is a pretty interesting one, and then objective work really. So in Hardpoint you're looking at HyDra Scrap, in damage per 10 you're looking at Scrap, Ghosty, right? So lots of the Thieves guys represented here of course, but Huke makes an appearance on the plus minus. He's at plus 203 in Hardpoint. That's the only place we see him on this list here, and to be fair it's not like you're seeing Simp that much either. Simp was seconds plus minus in Search and Destroy. He was also on this list for captures and control, but yeah, just an interesting season for a number of the SMGs. aBeZy did top the line for most first bloods, but actually tied with 04. They were both at 107. Usually we see aBeZy way ahead. That wasn't quite the case this season, and then some other stats as well, but mostly split understandably between FaZe and Thieves, with a couple of mentions in there for some of the Heretics guys, Super and Real. They had, interestingly enough, Real was leading the line on first deaths, and so I'm not sure that's really one to celebrate. But anyway, these are the numbers from the season that we just had. There was a bit of follow-up to the Attach and Temp top 30 most talented Gunskill players. If you guys didn't see our discussion on this yesterday, it was a big debate. I know that Trey was saying, and maybe understandably, no one from Europe, right? No one from outside of the US. Talking players like Jerd, maybe players like Mad Cat, I don't know. I think there's a few players that I'd probably put on this list from Europe over the years as well. You guys may have your perspective on that in the comments. But TJ says the list is horrendous. And Dutch goes, you should have seen the look that Don gave me when I said your name. So yeah, TJ was maybe wanting to be on there. That's not how it turned out to be. I think I'll just go find real quick the quote tweet here from Trey when he talked about it. Yeah, he says not a single UK player is interesting. Beans is like, think I'm 31. BO2 Jerd was the best player. So yeah, that was, to me, that would be, I would put Jerd on here, I think, in my opinion, but you guys may have your thoughts. Clay says, I'll take it. Top 15 Gunskill, I'll take it. Clay maintains that he's the second best player of all time. And I think that is what's interesting for Clay, because, okay, if you're Clay and you get put 14th on this list, biggest Gunskill, like best Gunskill ever, is that disrespectful, or are you happy with that? I guess it depends where you rate yourself. We know that Clay thinks he's the second best player ever behind Kremp, and wherever you put Clay, whether you put him 4th or 3rd or 5th or wherever you put him in the all-time list, you're probably having him lower for Gunskill, which is not to say that Clay wasn't a real straight shooter, because he really was, certainly in his prime. But maybe that's even more impressive, right? Maybe Clay looks at that and says, yeah, maybe I only was the 15th ever best player in terms of pure aim, but look what I did with it, right? So that's almost maybe more impressive. I don't know. And tweet your perspective on that in the comments. ZooMaa says, most talented Tomasi, number 2, nobody, and then outside of the top 30 goes Nameless, right? Nameless, I don't know, maybe a year into they did some of this top 30 stuff, but a couple of very entertaining clips to share. This is one of them. Now, this guy Mystic, right? Now, you saw this the other day. I mentioned this clip the other day, and I've got another one to share. But this guy, we looked him up, and it doesn't seem that he's connected to Gentlemates. But I think clearly he is a fan of Gentlemates, French former COD player, friends with Gataga, I'd imagine. I think that if he's not connected to Gentlemates directly, it feels like he's very close to the organization, right? So let's just look at it from that perspective. Now, he was asked the question the other day about FeLo, because they've got rid of him. They brought in DiamondCon for the World Cup, and he said he's horrible, he can run challenges, but he can't keep up with the pace, if you guys didn't see this clip the other day. And now we have another one, which I think was very entertaining. So he was asked the question about Daryl, right? So Daryl, of course, coach of the Gentlemates team. It was Daryl and it was Marky B this season. And we know that Drill was maybe not the happiest about the way that organization was run, some of the decisions that were made behind the scenes. And yeah, could Drill have done a better job with what he was given this season? You know, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't there internally. All I know is that Drill won the World Championship with the New York team a couple of years ago and helped, you know, create HyDra into the player that he is today. How effective can a coach be on a team with pieces that aren't that great, in a system that's kind of broken, with a team culture behind the scenes that's an absolute mess from top to bottom? Probably not that effective, right? That's just my read on it, but, you know, I'm pretty close to Javed. We've talked quite a bit, so, you know, I would imagine that I could be considered biased in this case. But I think I can look at it relatively objectively and say that I don't think the Gentamates was really the spot where a coach is going to be able to show his worth so much. You know, I rate Daryl and Marky B as coaches. You know, last season was a bit of a nightmare. But this is what Mystic had to say about him, which I thought was hilarious. And it's like, yeah, the French fans, they just don't care. And I do respect it. So he's like, look, he got benched. He can man up the life that he wants. At the end of the day, we will remember that he produced a dung all year, right? So, you know, look, if Daryl chose the roster, then yeah, fair enough. The criticism is justified. Like, if he picked the team and then did that with it, then yeah, fair play. I don't think he necessarily picked the team, but yeah, I don't know. I know that people are pretty torn on Daryl as a character in the scene, but he says, like, no need to diss him, guys. Like, you know, we're all just like, okay, we don't really care anymore. And what does he go on to say? It's not like we're here in the past. Of course, it's all in French. We're not here to deal with that. The guy, you know, just basically roasted us on stream after all of the stuff that happened. We're just going to focus on the future here, and we're not going to beef with the guy that brought us L's all year, which is pretty funny because it's not, you know, maybe fair enough, right? And maybe I even respect it, but it's just pretty funny to think about. And as I say, it doesn't seem like he's like, he's not an owner of the org saying this, right? He seems to be a fan that's pretty close to the team, but obviously he very much has his perspective on Daryl's ability as a coach this season, let's say. Whether that's the full package, it's a different question, but I thought it was rather entertaining to say the least. Now, Shotzzy was cracking on. I've got a couple of clips to share for you guys here. This is one of them. Here we are on Hacienda. There were some Pro 8s going down. Can you believe it? Actual Pro 8s being played. The first kill here, of course, well, he's playing with Neptune, pops a nice little 3k, takes down Pred, Drazah gets taken down as well, in a 3v1, pops the final kill as well. So look at us go, right? It's Kremp, Simp, Pred, Drazah on the other side, and the scene is actually back. We've actually got some 8s going on before the World Cup. I remember last year, people were taking it so unseriously that they're actually streaming some scrims going into the World Cup. That hasn't happened this year, as we well know, but there are some Pro 8s going down. There actually is some COD getting played, and I'm sure the off-season might be pretty good on that front as well. So nice little speedy ace here from Shotzzy, seeing if they can go back-to-back at the World Cup, whether OpTic can pull that off, whether they can go back-to-back again, back-to-back World Championships, back-to-back victories to close out the season. It's going to be a big challenge. But the other clip and the other drama was around this from Scump. So this post was put onto the Reddit the day before yesterday. And it says, POV, you're watching Prime Scump. And it's just some legendary moments. I mean, I remember all of these like so vividly, watching videos and scrims and streams at the time. You know, I think I might have even watched this live actually back in the day, because I used to watch so many of the OpTic scrims when they were streaming them. And it's just like, it's a shame in some ways how the scene has changed. It's kind of inevitable, but tuning on at night and watching the OpTic guys play team scrims against other teams was just, yeah, such an amazing time, which we don't really have the pleasure of doing pretty, you know, rarely anyway nowadays that you get the opportunity to do it. This was, you know, one of the Scump clutches on Detroit. Search and Destroy, finds himself in a 1 versus 3, gets the first kill, kills this guy, and then, you know, Scump was funny in this game because, as you can tell, his movement is not exactly the most crisp you're ever going to see, but his gunny was just insane. Even got this clip, of course, from this map was Terrace, right? Advanced Warfare Search and Destroy map, and, you know, all of these clips live long in the memory for me, and there's just been a lot of talk looking back at some of these clips, and ZooMaa will see what he has to say in a second when Scump pulls out the sniper rifle as to what that means for the scene today compared to what it used to be. And yeah, maybe we're never going to be able to get back to the golden era that we had in this time frame, and there's never going to be another player like Scump, and there's never going to be another period of COD that's quite like this. But could we still do a better job as a scene? At the end of the day, for all of the frustration around the state of COD in recent times, yes, it's got to be said, we had the most viewers ever for the World Championship this year that we've really ever had. Here's Scump pulling out the Moors, and you guys may remember, like, what a sniper rifle this was. But it's not happening anymore, right? Overkill as a concept no longer exists. It would be impossible to think that that would even be allowed in competitive play any longer because the pros simply just decide to get rid of everything. So that one of ZooMaa's frustrations is there's like Slasher and some others. Can we not go back to a world where we're playing a better style of Call of Duty than, you know, like what we kind of had in this era right here? So, yeah, one of the moments of all time for sure.
2 nades over 8, 2 nades.
I'm back
They're me.
Yeah, one's it. Yo, one shot, one shot bomb, one connector, and then one shot there. Outer fence or well. Outer fence or well.
Yeah, you hit me. You're good.
I'm pretty sure I saw him. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
that's good shit.
Nice.
Hell yeah. I'm lacking.
Damn, they like late peeked the fuck out of like A. I was like holding it forever, and then I looked outer fence and I peeked bomb, and they're all 3 on bomb.
I don't even know. I don't think anyone went outer.
So there.
I'm gonna try to get the bomb down, dude.
Yeah. Right. Hold on a minute. Oh, yeah, baby. Back when COD was great. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man. Now we got a bunch of pussies in a CDL. Yeah, I said it. Bunch of pussies. It's too good. Pussies. Get it back in there. I don't give a fuck. What you gotta say. We used this shit 10 years ago. We're using it now. All right, bro? Nah. Bunch of pussies, including you, Liddy. Liddy, you didn't want that shit. Everybody point and laugh at Liddy. Liddy didn't want that shit, bro. He didn't want it. Pussies, bro. Pussies.
Even a clip like this here on BioLab, right? I mean, I'll play this out. 1, 2, Scump hits the 3rd, hits the little reload, dashes, slams this guy for the 4th. Don't really know what that guy was doing, but, you know, no one could compete. But it just feels a bit frustrating to look at because, in many respects, we've done pretty well with the league, some of the growth of COD, and yeah, it's been helped massively by OpTic actually winning these World Championships where the viewership has been good, and it wasn't long before Champs that we were talking about COD being incredibly dead and feeling very dead, as certainly it was for that month in the run-up to the World Championship, as we know, when everything was all happening behind the scenes. So there's so many things that, you know, we need to and should improve. And I mean, look at this scoreboard, right? Scump has 62 kills here, and no one else in the lobby has more than 30. I mean, like, this is just crazy times, but it feels that for many reasons over the last few years we've missed out on a boatload of growth and opportunities that we could have had that unfortunately have kind of been, let's just say, postponed until we figure a few things out with this league. So very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.